Don't ever figure it all out. It's not fun when you figure it all out. I feel like we tell ourselves throughout our lives, by fill in the blank age, I should have had it figured out by now, or like, I should know what I'm doing. Or the last time that I actually did have my 5, 10, and 20-year plan figured out, I was sad. Don't ever figure it out. Life is way more fun when you keep trying new things. Follow your heart. There's so many things you can do in this world. Wild and crazy. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Badassery. I'm your host, Christine Lozada. This is a podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. It's those small moments that give us the for our big badass moments in life. They're not random. They're a result of flexing that muscle time and time again. Next week, your girl turns 40. This is part 2. This is the second episode of a series in which I'm sharing the 40 things I've learned coming up on 40 years young. And that one was number 29. And so let's talk about this next one, which is, understand what is and is not in your control. I was reflecting back on when I first started as a travel creator. I was like, I'm going to go make YouTube videos. And I started during the pandemic, i.e. like the worst time to travel. And I realized that, travel shaming is real. And I started off my travel creator career with so much hate. Everybody hated me because I was traveling during the pandemic. And that was my choice. That was my choice that was in my control. And what I felt comfortable with was going to places that were totally outdoor and I could be secluded from everyone else, i.e. beaches in Zanzibar, beaches in Mexico, where you're just outside and it's just you. And a lot of people didn't support that. I could not control the pandemic. I didn't know when it was going to be over, but I could control what I was going to do within it. And I was going to make that my choice. So in any situation thereafter, I've always kind of just evaluated, all right, this is the situation. Which part of it is in my control and which one is not? Because too often I have found myself in life just getting so caught up trying to control things I absolutely cannot. And one of the top things you can't control is other people's reactions. And so when the world gave me hate, I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing just because you don't like it. And you know what? That's the difference between people who continue and go on and do the things and people who stop and give up and don't try anymore. I wasn't going to let that hold me back. All right, the next one, stop complaining. Stop complaining. I recently traveled with somebody that I might be related to, who complains so much. There's an endless amount of things to complain about. And I've learned this over time because I used to be a really big complainer. Complaining does not accomplish what you think it will. One, no one wants to hear your complaints. No one wants to hear your complaints. And you know what? Who really just complains to themselves? No one. You need an audience when you complain. And guess what? That audience, they don't want to freaking hear it. Stop complaining. No one wants to hear it. And 2, complaining in theory should help you to feel better. I can't. Just tell me a time you've heard someone complain and they're like, I feel so much better now that I've come. No, like you just feed the negativity. Like complaining don't accomplish what you want it to accomplish. No one wants to hear it and it will not make you feel better. So just stop complaining. And I allow myself to complain. Actually, there is one time I feel better when I complain. It's when I'm very hungover. When I wake up in the morning and I'm like, wow, I'm very hungover. I will allow myself to complain until I've had my first cup of coffee and then I'm done. But before that, it's like game on complaining. All right. That's the one instance. Next, whatever you do, do not make a decision in a panic. I want you to just think back to a time or times you've recently panicked. Think about a time you panicked and how well did you handle that situation? My guess is, oh, hold on. Now compare that to a time in which you were in a difficult situation and you did not panic and you remained calm when it was very hard, likely, to remain calm. And how well did you handle that situation? I think back to any situation I've been in and I was in a panic. I have never made a good decision in that situation. And so one of the things that I've realized over time, especially after spending a lot of time traveling alone, is that the calmer that you can stay in any, and it's not easy, in difficult situations, the better the outcome is going to be. And so it might sound weird, but I do not allow myself to panic. And if it's a situation, and these situations have come up, I recently called 911 for my first time because I was at the scene of an accident in which someone was very, very hurt. And I realized that I was the person that was closest to a phone and could call or could run actually to a phone. And I realized in that situation, panicking would not help the paramedics to get there any faster. And so forcing yourself to remain as calm as you can. But if you do find yourself in a situation, you're in a panic, and it is a moment in which you could or could not make a decision, don't make a decision in that state. Wait until you are calm. All right, it's a really big one for me. Don't add fire to the negativity conversation. Oh, I know you know this one. Oh, you got to hear this. The other day, I was in line, and this lady cut me off, and you want to know what she said to me? Blah, 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 blah. No way! Let me tell you about the other day. This fill in the blank, right? This negativity spiral is something that I am very familiar with in like my 20s, when I was young and immature, and it's just one of those things where it's like, let me one up you on something worse that happened, and it's one of those things where people love juicy or spicy or gossip or like negative headlines. And this is also like what our news revolves around, right? Like, oh, like let me tell you a worse news headline that will catch your attention even more. Become aware when you find yourself around people that are like this, and when you start adding fuel to that fire. Because even though it can in the moment feel fun to be in these conversations of one-upping, like oh, let me tell you something even worse that happened. Oh, no, you gotta hear this. Like, it might feel fun in that moment, but the outcome of how you feel afterwards is likely not a positive feeling where you want to now go give love and kindness to the world. We need more kind people in this world. If there's one thing that being on podcast or on YouTube or on social media is, wow, there's a lot of freaking mean people out there, and they have a lot of hate to give. And the more kindness and the more love that we can give, the better this world is going to be. And when I look at the news and when I look at the headlines, I don't feel a lot of faith in the world. So don't don't fuel the fire of the negativity spiral. We just need less of that. That's my opinion. Next one. We think it's about money, but it's really about freedom of time. I'll share some personal stories here because I used to be married to someone who was extremely wealthy, who came from a lot of wealth. And one of the things that I learned was how much money does not solve happiness. No, not even a little bit. One of the things I love when I went through the Tony Robbins program was thinking about your relationship with money. And so one thing I would encourage you to do is think about how you feel about money, how you feel about spending money, how you feel about giving money, how you feel about receiving money. Ooh, here's a big one. How you feel about asking for money, whether you've earned it, deserved it, job-wise, whatever it is. Just start to understand your relationship with money, because one of the things that I have really changed my mind about is the importance of money. Oh, money is important, but the way and the word I'm going to use is cherish. I cherish money is different. I used to think it was really important because money was going to be freedom. That is not true if you are tied to jobs in which you are a prisoner to that job. That job might make you a lot of money, but you can't do anything with your time because you're always in the office, or you're always working, or you're always on email, or you're always in a meeting or on a call, or you're working every single holiday, because that's what I used to do. And that was not freedom. Now, my lifestyle is very different now. I spend a different amount of money now. I make a significantly different salary now, but I have endless freedom of time. And when I compare my old life, I feel like I was a ball and chain and I was a prisoner to my job, versus the way I feel now, which is money is no longer a cherished item to me. Money is a tool. That's the word that I use now on that is literally how I feel about money. Money to me is a tool. Money is a tool that gives me, I don't know, whatever it is I'm looking for. The experience that I want, the transportation to the experience I want, the fill in the blank, but it always leads to an experience. Because having and owning things is just a lot of crap. It's a lot of crap. And I think about people who hoard and love to purchase things, and I think about how much happiness they get from that physical thing versus how much happiness you can get from an experience, especially if that experience is with people you love, which we'll talk about more in a minute. So money for me is a tool. It does not necessarily buy you freedom, and it definitely does not buy you happiness. Whew. That one I have learned time and time again over my life. All right, the next one. Ooh, you never really know what's going on with a person. Think about a time that you were recently driving. Oh, you got cut off so bad. Someone just cut you off and you're like, oh, that a-hole. And you like catch up to them so you can speed up and give them the middle finger and maybe like honk your horn some. And do you know if that person is racing to the hospital because they're driving their wife who's about to deliver a baby? Or do you know if that person is racing to their flight because they're cutting it real close? Or fill in the blank. You don't know what's going on. It's a very simple example, but I like to use that one because it's relatable. In 2021, Meatball almost died. And so many times, there were so many times I would wake up in the middle of the night and just reach my hand over and put it on his heart to see if he was still alive, to see if he was still breathing. He got extremely sick. Long story short, we had no idea what was wrong. He was getting sicker and sicker every single day. He lost like 30 or 40 pounds. He literally withered into someone who was unrecognizable. People didn't even know, one time, this one made him cry. One time someone thought that he was his dad. His dad is dead, by the way. And people just didn't know who he was. He was so sick. People couldn't recognize him. Photos of all this and a full podcast about it is available on this podcast, by the way. We talk about that. It's the title of that episode is Finding Joy like while deathly sick or something like that. And during that time, I was still on camera and I still had to do my job and I still had to do the things in my life. And it's just one of those things where it's not that I hid what was going on, but I didn't necessarily always talk about it during that time, because I realized that the more I talked about it, the more people expected an update on what was happening. And what was difficult was we were in a time of complete unknown. We didn't know if he was going to get better, and we did not see a light at the end of the tunnel. We still kept hope in our hearts, but we did not know what was going to happen next. And we did not want to have to keep updating people along the way about how much we didn't know, because that did not help us at all. We just needed to keep hope and love and pray And that was honestly like what was going on during that time. But I just remember a lot of the ways that people would treat me sometimes during that time, just, assuming that everything was going on, and everything's okay in my life. And it's just give people grace. If something seems off about someone, maybe something is off. Or if someone cuts you off in traffic, maybe it's for a reason that isn't what you expect. Too often we just assume things about people and you don't know what's going on. You just don't know what's going on. I remember when my sister had breast cancer. She was post-surgery at the hospital. I was helping her with her business at that time, just in case. Someone kept messaging her and she was just like, I just finished surgery. Like, I will get back to you shortly. Like, you just don't know what's going on in people's lives. So give people grace, cut people some slack. And until they prove otherwise, then let all the cannons loose. All right, the next one. What people feel inside is what they show to the outside world. This one is one where we oftentimes think it's us or something we did or something we're doing or something we said or something about us. We take a lot of things personally and we think it's about us when it's not necessarily about you. And I'll share this in two different stories. One, going back to the travel shaming and in general, just receiving so much hate. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean you get hate? I get people writing me long emails about how much they hate me and how they can't stand what I wear, or how I need to wear more makeup, or I need to lose some weight, or whatever it is. Or I get people telling me like my opinion is wrong about something and some long-winded something about it. And generally, before I used to care, now I don't care. Because one of the things I learned is that what's happening to someone's relationship inside, how they feel about themselves, how much they love themselves, or how much they hate themselves and their lives, is a direct reflection to how they will interact with and treat the world. It's not always about something that you did or you said. You might just happen to be present that day or the person that they saw. And you're just the receiving party of that feeling that they have inside. Think about the opposites. Think about a time you've interacted with someone that just has so much confidence in themselves and is so happy with their lives. And how was it interacting with them versus someone who's just like, wow, like, did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today? Like, what is going on with you? And at the same time, life is a journey, and you might be on one side of the coin on one year and a different side of the coin the other year. You got to give people grace to go through what they go through. But my takeaway from this one is it's not always about you. It's sometimes just about what's going on with someone else. And maybe there's something kind that you could do to help them get to the other side of the coin. And I remember one time, there's someone who, oh man, this girl has like a multi-million person audience. She's a huge audience. And every time I travel with her, she always has these little jabs to really put me down publicly. And one time I really tuned in to like what style, like is there a theme to these jabs? Because I was going to tell her like, yo, you got to stop making those comments, man. Like it's unnecessary and it's mean. And I realized in a very recent jab that she gave me, I was like, oh wow, no. This isn't a jab to me. This is her self-consciousness, and this is her lack of confidence shining out to the world. Because I wasn't the only receiver of the jab. I was one of many people that were around when I started tuning in to whom she was jabbing that day. And I was like, she just has some issues that she needs to work through. And the next year, I gave her some grace, and I gave her some suggestions on books to read, some self-help books. And, the next year I traveled with her, she was like, I'm actually seeing a life coach, and she got out of a relationship that she was in and realized she needed a better relationship with herself. And I was like, good for you. Because that's exactly what you needed. It's not always about you. Sometimes, it's just what someone has going on inside of them. The next one is love harder. You're hearing this in some of these stories, right? Like in moments where like, oh man, when you're faced with so much meanness or so much hate, to love back, it's hard. But also, for the people you do love them harder. I woke up the other night. It's very rare that I wake up and I don't know when I'm at Meatball's house. When I'm at Meatball's house, I always wake up and I know exactly where I'm at. But I've recently came off of living on a luxury catamaran, which was very nice. I was taking scopolamine, something like that. Basically, motion sickness patches that are prescription grade. They give you crazy dreams. They make your vision blurry. And they make you very tired. And I've been having crazy dreams. And I woke up in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh my God, where am I? Who was next to me? And I saw that it was Meatball. And all I could think of was, thank God for this man in my life. I love him so much. And that morning, I didn't wake up in that moment, but that morning, I was like, I just want you to know how much I love you and how thankful I am. Think about someone that you love who needs to hear that also. I do tell him that all the time, but tell that person how much you love them. It's important. Love harder. When it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, it really is in this life all about love. It's all about love and connection. We are humans. I think about what is the greatest punishment that we in the United States give, aside from the death sentence. The greatest punishment that we give in our society is solitary confinement. It's removing you from all other people. It's removing you from other connections. And it's removing love from your life. That is the greatest punishment. So think about the opposite of how important it is to have that in our lives. And love harder. The people you love love harder. Stop questioning why you feel a certain way and just feel it. This is something I used to always do, especially in my, 20s and less. I used to always be like, I'm tired. Why do I feel tired today? I shouldn't feel tired. Or like, I feel so mad at so-and-so. I shouldn't be mad at so-and-so. Like, why am I mad? Just feel what you feel, period. Like, why do we always have to question things and like put a reasoning behind it? This is your heart and your gut talking and feeling whatever it is. You don't need your brain involved. Nowadays, I just allow myself to feel that way. Maybe I might encourage myself to try to change it if it's not something that's helping me. But I just let myself feel the things. Given that scopolamine motion sickness patch, man, I've been freaking out of it the last couple days. And you know what? I woke up and I was like, I'm out of it today. I'm not going to work really hard, but I am going to unpack 3 luggages from my last 3 trips because that's easy work. I'll do that. Let myself feel the crappiness that I felt, totally out of it. I'm not going to force myself to try to do something else unless, you need to. But stop questioning why you feel that way and just feel it. A simple, wear sunscreen. Just wear sunscreen. It's really important. Like actually, a lot of people don't know this. In the stint between working for Walmart.com and working for Amazon.com, I was living in New York City, and I did a quick stint as a VP of a startup. And it was a startup that was a beauty startup, and it was really for middle-aged to older women. And the woman that owned the company didn't wear sunscreen. And she was trying to sell beauty products that like made you look young. If this woman did not put on every single makeup and beauty product because of how much sun damage she had had over her lifetime, she looked like 2 totally different people, which props to her for like creating a lot of beauty products that helped her to look differently. But also, beauty is just what you feel inside, no matter what. She was ugly inside, so that didn't help out. She was a very mean woman. She just cussed me out all the time. That's working in New York City in a nutshell. And anyway, wear sunscreen. It's important. Oh, speaking of mirrors, the world will mirror what you give it. I really learned this when I was, it sounds weird to say this, but I was on fire. When I made the decision to change my life, to get my divorce, and to just live a life of travel, that was in 2018. And I knew that decision was so right and was just like, yes, this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And I was just on fire. Like, I was open to the world. I knew what I wanted in my life. I knew what I wanted in my heart. And you know what the world gave me? Everything I was looking for. It gave me opportunities. It gave me Meatball. I met him at that time. It gave me like just so many things were attracted to me. At that time, I was giving the world yes, and the world was receiving it and giving it back to me. This is not something that you can fake until you make it. In other words, like if I woke up and I was like, not really feeling it, and was like, yeah, okay, world, like give it to me. Like it doesn't really work like that. You can't really fake it till you make it. But what I'm trying to say here is the energy that you put out to the world. I'm giving you an extreme example of a time of my life where I was very on, like I was on fire, and the world just mirrored that back, and I received it. What you give out is what you will receive back. And so I think of the opposite, where I have some people who are close in my life who there are things that they really want in their lives, but they don't put that energy out there. And they just kind of like secretly, like really secretly want something, but they're not really gonna do anything other than wish and hope and quiet. And I'm just like, nah, man, put it out to the world. What you put out to the world, you're gonna receive back, which also is the equivalent of hate. Like if you are just mad at the world, like, yo, the world will be mad right back at you. It will. I see that with lots of creators that I know. And so this ties to the next one, which is you'll find what you're looking for. And so I think about situations where, actually, here's just a very, very simple one. We were at the airport. It was near Thanksgiving. This is like one of the worst times to be at the airport. It's very, very busy around the holidays. Everyone is stressed out. Like the holidays stress people out. It's busy. A lot of people who don't normally travel are currently traveling. And the person I was traveling with, they were just like, oh, this is going to be awful. It's going to be so busy, and the lounge is going to be full, and it's going to be a lousy experience. And you know what? It was. You could also have looked at that as, wow, like this is one of the busiest days to travel. We're in a crappy situation in which we missed a connecting flight, and we now have a 6-hour wait. Thank goodness we don't have to hang out in the busier part of the airport, but instead we can be in the quieter lounge with free access, unlimited access to food and alcohol, and faster internet otherwise, and we are in a better situation than we would otherwise be in the main part of the airport. There are two ways you could see that situation. What you look for, the good in it or the bad in it, you'll find it. In any good or bad situation I've ever been in, I think about times, this one I was upset by. I was recently catching up with someone, and she was so mad because all of her Europe travel was canceled, and now, now I just have to go to the Bahamas. Like, all I'm going to do is go to this all-inclusive resort, I don't know, whatever luxury, and I'm just going to sit on the beach all day. And I'm like, wow, I just really don't feel bad for you. Like, not even a little bit. And she was looking for that bad time because her Europe trip was canceled. I'm like, this is serious first world people's problems, by the way. And so it's like, how are you going to really enjoy something that is so awesome when you have that mindset? What you were looking for, which is the disappointment about Europe, is what you're going to find while you're trying to luxuriate in the pajamas. Like, come on. And so for me, it's really changed my mindset about how I try to look for the good anytime I can. This doesn't mean I'm naive about shit. Nah, not even a little bit. But if there is a chance to look for the light at the end of the tunnel, to look for the good in a situation, why not? Life is too short not to be having a good time all the freaking time. That instead of commiserating in whatever situation you're in, like and this is something I ask myself, what is the most amount of fun that I could have in this situation? Whether it already is really fun or it's kind of a crappy situation that there's not a whole lot that I can do about, but how can we make a game out of this and have a good time? Because, I'm always reminded tomorrow is not guaranteed. I recently podcasted with someone who her life changed in literally an instant. And her world went black when she was riding on the back of a motorcycle and someone hit her straight on. And she just recently, after all this time, decided to amputate her leg. And so you can catch that in Phoenix's podcast episode. She's such a badass, and she's still doing all the things that she wants to do and traveling, despite of her disability and despite that situation. All right. Cherish the place you call home. This is one that I learned after choosing the lifestyle I have now, which is, I haven't spent, I always say it this way, but it's actually longer. I haven't spent more than 3 weeks in one place in over 7 years, but now it's longer than that. It's like 9 years or 10 years or something like that. But basically, I'm constantly traveling or moving places. Yes, I have home bases, whether where I grew up in San Diego or here where I'm filming this now at Meatball's house that I turned into my filming studio and my office. Thank you, Meatball. But it's made me realize how much as humans, as people who come together in communities and create places that we call home, how important home is. And one of the things that has increasingly bothered me over time is people who continue to live in places they don't like. And I get it. There are situations where sometimes you just don't have a choice. But whatever is in your control, right? Choose and figure out what is in your control. Make the most of it. Whether you need to change something about your situation and you need to stay where you're at because you don't have a choice, but you make your home better, or you move somewhere else that you are happy to call home. As humans, home is such an important place, and loving and cherishing our home is really important. And one of the things I've realized after being a traveler who wakes up and doesn't know where I'm getting coffee that day. Oh my God, like where am I going to get coffee today? Or waking up in yet another Airbnb and being like, oh, we're putting away the dishes. Where do these dishes go? I don't know where these dishes go. Or where am I going to do laundry today? Oh shit, I actually need to go find a laundromat. Okay, let's go find a laundromat. Or what are the directions to the gym? Let me pull up Google Maps. The things that are normal routine for most people, for me, is a job and a task every single day when you're a traveler. The basic things. I have a clean shirt. I don't necessarily have a clean shirt, nor do I have a place to go wash my shirt. And a lot of times, let me order that off of Amazon and I'll deliver it to my home. How many days will I be in Moab, Utah for that I could have Amazon? Oh, Amazon Prime will ship next day to my next location when I'm in Colorado, but in Moab, Utah, because it's somewhere obscure, Amazon Prime won't come for 8 business days. Like things like that, right? And it's made me realize that when I am at Meatball's house, and I encourage you, wherever you call home, to love it and to cherish it. And the things that you feel like, it's such a mundane routine, might actually be a really nice, convenient thing that allows you to focus on other things in your life. Consider that. All right. How you feel about your age is in direct proportion to how you will age. Ooh, this is a gnarly one. I was inspired by pickleball, of all things. I was inspired by pickleball because pickleball has allowed me to hang out with a lot of older people. Oh, I love it. I was actually hanging out with Bruce last night. He's one of my favorite people. I think Bruce is like 80 something. was telling me about how he recently broke up with a woman friend and how he feels kind of bad about it. I was like, announcement, everybody. Bruce is available. He is on the market. I love this man. Amazing pickleball player. Super old. So wise. And I love spending time with older people because they have so much wisdom to give. And I love asking them questions about like reflecting on their lives and all the things. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. How people feel about their age is in direct proportion to how they will age. And one of the things that I started to notice in pickleball is how some older people like love and embrace their age, and how other people will blame their age and hate their age, especially when I'm beating them at pickleball. A lot of times, like, Bruce kicks my ass on the court. I'm not even half as good as he is. He is an amazing pickleball player who's significantly better than I am. I don't think age has anything to do with pickleball skill. Or maybe I'm just a terrible pickleball player. I'm not. Anyway, there are people who are just like, oh, I only lost that game because how old are you, Christine? Like, I'm blah, blah, blah. I hate being blah, 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 or something like that. And it inspired me to read a book about aging. And the book was about how you view age will determine how you actually age. And it did a lot of studies of people in nursing homes versus people in Japan. Because the most number of people who are over 100 years old, live beyond 100, are in Japan. And one of the reasons why, I mean, obviously, their lifestyle and all the things, but how they view age. Like elderly people, just think about this for a second. What kind of words do you associate with like, oh, there's an old person driving that car? Like, do you think like, oh, they must be very wise, or they know where they're going? You probably have like images in your head. That person must be slow. They must be a bad driver. They probably shouldn't be behind the wheel. The way our society in the United States views old people or elderly people is oftentimes, not always, oftentimes not with a lot of respect. They're useless. They should no longer be in the workforce. They fill in the blank. I don't necessarily believe these things. Again, I love playing pickleball with older people and hanging out with them. It's why I go. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. But in Japan, they celebrate the elderly. Like, the elderly people are such an important part of society, and elderly people see their older age, post-retirement, as this time to reinvent themselves and pick up a new hobby, to try like playing a new instrument or a new dance or fill in the blank. And that mindset makes them age differently. I encourage you to just think about how you think about aging, and how maybe you might want to change your mindset, and maybe how you might want to celebrate the older people in your life and maybe gain some wisdom from them. I hope Bruce is at the pickleball courts tonight because I'll be there at 7 p.m. All right. Understand what feeds and drains your energy, and then build your life around what builds you up. This is something that I was not in tune with in my younger years. A lot of times I just did the things because you're supposed to do the things. In my previous podcast episode, I talk about the shoulds. And we always should be doing that, as you should yourself to death. And a lot of times, a lot of those shoulds were things that really drained my energy. And I also talked in that previous episode about people who drain your energy. Just get in tune with what really gives you energy, and do more of those things, and spend more time with those people that give you energy. And the opposite, as much as you can, going back to what is and is not in your control. With what is in your control, limit what drains your energy. I'm really careful about those things in my life now. Whether it's, I've hired out some things that drain my energy in my business, or I simply don't do tasks that I used to think I should be doing that really drain my energy. If you don't need it in your life, don't do it. If you can. All right. I talked about this with the older people, but we can reinvent ourselves over and over. There are a couple people I've had on this podcast that have really inspired me with the way they've reinvented themselves. I recently podcasted for the second time with Stacy at Hot Flashes and Boarding Passes. This woman turned 50, decided to go start her life in Tulum, Mexico, a place where twerking and influencers and New York prices and popping bottles is on the regular. And she's still killing it 3 years later. She's loves her life out there. She reinvented her life out there. Good for her. I think about Pam. She's in the episode. She's 72 years old. She's a black belt and will whoop your ass. She was recently taking lessons to become a jet pilot. Not just an airplane pilot, like jets. That's gnarly. That's Pam. She recently traveled alone to Chile down to Antarctica. She's such a badass. And she's reinventing herself all the time. She finds something, I want to try that, I want to do that, and she'll just do it. She's old. She doesn't give a fuck. Why can't we constantly reinvent ourselves? We're human. We oftentimes get stuck, and we think that for whatever reason, our age, our circumstances, where we live, our previous education, that we can't fill in the blank. One of the things that I am and this has come from traveling to a lot of third world countries, we live in the United States and we have the ability to have the freedom to do whatever we want, most things we want. But more so than I can see in other countries where there are a lot of restrictions around fill in the blank, how women need to be in society, or class systems that really prevent people from starting a business or reinventing their lives. And so I just see the possibilities as endless, no matter who you are or where you are in your life or what age you are. We can always reinvent ourselves, and don't think you can't, because you can. Oh, that ties to this one, Dream Bigger. There is a Mel Robbins book out there called, actually I think exactly that, Dream Bigger. And one of the things I realized after reading it is that I allow myself to wonder and dream, and I've followed so many of my dreams, but I still don't dream big enough. And I encourage you to write down 3 to 5 of your current dreams, or just one. What's one dream that you have? Write it down, and then 10x it. And then 100x it. And what would that dream be on steroids? And just try to imagine what that would be. And then ask yourself the most important question, which is why not? Why can't that be your reality? And just take one tiny step today, tiny, to go after that dream. Just try it. Because honestly, why not? Life is too short. All right, dream bigger. We dream in little bite sizes. We really do. Dream bigger. Go read Mel Robbins' book. She's amazing. Start every day with gratitude. This is something that I started actually in my podcast episode with Mike Scheibel of Travel with Meaning. We talk about morning routines. And I talk about the 3-2-1. I start my day with 3 things I am grateful for. 2 things that I must accomplish that day, and 1 word that is my theme of the day. But start your day with gratitude. And one of the things I always think about is when I am in a mindset of I'm so thankful for, I don't know, I'll just think of the 3 things I'm thankful for right now. I'm thankful it's sunny outside and it's December. I'm so glad I'm not in a place where it's dreary and drab and snowing. I don't miss that about New York City. I'm so thankful that right after this, if I want to drink a glass of champagne, I got a bottle open in the fridge right now. And I am so thankful I'm going to be playing pickleball tonight. I hope Bruce is there. He's amazing. He's also going to be on this podcast in the future. I keep wanting to go to his house and podcast with him. Oh, this man was he was very unwell and was very, very sick, and then picked up pickleball, and now it's thriving. I cannot wait to uncover that story. Whew, I feel like this podcast episode is just a preview to my podcast episode with Bruce. There's so many things to be thankful for. When you are in a state of gratitude, It is hard to be mad. It is hard to be sad. It is hard to feel upset about something. When you're thankful for the things you have in your life, it's hard to be anything other than just happy about it. And if we can find constantly the things we are thankful for, because we really do have so much. We have so much. And sometimes it takes the perspective of traveling or the perspective of spending time with other people to understand how much we really do have. But you have a lot. Think about those things and stay in a state of gratitude, and happiness will ensue. That's how I feel. All right, here's my last one for this episode. Then we got our final 10 in the next episode. Which, by the way, if you got some value out of this, please connect with me. I'm at Christine Lozada everywhere. I recently got a message from Stacy Peters. Love this woman. I didn't know she's been listening to my podcast. It was amazing to hear from her. I love to hear from you. I don't know who's out there listening. I am speaking into the ether right now. But I hope you are finding some value out of this. Cheers that like button if you are. Share this with someone if you are. It really does help to distribute this podcast to more people. And connect with me. I'm at Christine Lozada everywhere. This final one is identify your fears. We all know what we're afraid of. But really, think about it. What are some things you're really afraid of that you wish you were not afraid of? Right? My biggest one that I talk about a lot on this podcast is the ocean. I was so scared of the ocean. Even now, I'm still sometimes scared of the ocean. All the time. It's hard to get rid of that fear. And then take one step, one tiny step to get closer to that fear. For me, my step was doing some research online. I'm so scared of sharks. So I did more research online around where shark attacks happen the most, why shark attacks happen. Also, there's significantly less shark attacks than you could possibly imagine. Or a simple thing in San Diego, it's not uncommon to get stung by a stingray. And it's not like they're out for you. It's usually because people just accidentally step on them, which is why you're encouraged in San Diego at the beaches to shuffle your feet when you're going out into the water, so that if there is a stingray there, it's aware of you and can move away because they have no desire to be around you. Whereas we just think, oh my God, they're out to get us. Oh my goodness. For me, another small step has been watching sharks with my drone, especially when they're around people. This is one of the worst things when I'm flying my drone and there's surfers out there, and one time I did see a great white, and there's nothing I can do. I'm so far away. Unless I swim out there and I'm hey, there's a shark in the water. There's nothing I can do to tell them. But at the same time, I've also learned they are not interested in us. Sharks are not interested in us. They're not oh my goodness, look, a person. Thank goodness. Let me go eat them. It's actually not like that at all. And spending more time, again, small steps, doing research online. That was so easy. Setting my drone. For me, so easy. Next step, go shark diving, right? Spend more time at aquariums, fill in the blank. What are your fears? What's one small thing you can do to become more knowledgeable about it? And the reason why I'm saying this is for a lot of the people I've had on this podcast or people I meet in life, a lot of people, once they know, learn, and understand their fears, they realize there's nothing to be afraid of in the first place. And they don't know why it was ever holding them back. And that prevented them from stepping into the insanely badass self that they are now. So get over your fear faster. Take one small step today and take another small step tomorrow. The closer you are to your fear, the closer you are to overcoming it. Because you can understand why you shouldn't be afraid in the first place. Get over yourself. We're all badasses in there. It just takes a little bit of getting closer to your fear. I'm almost 40. Holy crap. All right. This has been part 2 of 40 Things I Learned Before 40. Stay tuned for part 3. I'm Christine Lozada. This has been another episode of Everyday Badassery. Connect with me. I'm at Christine Lozada everywhere. And in the meantime, go forth. Be badass. I'll see you in the next adventure. Ciao.